Hi, it's Sandra from Midwest Charm. Today I'm gonna finish up our DIY projects that we have started. If you have watched my previous videos, you saw that I did paint the first coat of these on video for you guys. This is in, I don't have them all up here, but this is a Hurricane Gray by Dixie Belle. I decided on the inside of this to go with, it is Dusty Blue. And it's a pretty color. It's a neutral. It's got some gray in it, so it goes really well with the gray. What I decided to do for this one is I'm going to put some grain sack stripes on these and then number the steps. So I do my stripes by hand. I do not measure them out. I just want it kind of free and rustic feeling, and just use my blue painter's tape that you can buy at any hardware store. And you're gonna make sure that the edges are pushed down really well as you're applying this, so that none of the paint will seep under it. And you're gonna wanna go with all the curves and make sure you've got it pushed in really well there. And for this, I'm going to leave the top down, and I'm not running those stripes onto the back. So I will just go across the top of this. Make sure everything is sealed down, pushed down. And I think I'm gonna do 3 stripes. And I kind of want them off-centered. I don't want them to be really, just want it to be kind of, not freehand, but definitely a more relaxed feel to them. Just wanna make sure this is pretty parallel. And you could, if you want, go ahead and use a ruler and measure everything out and make sure everything's equal distance and it's all, but again, I want this to be more of a rusticy feel to it. And this tape is not being very kind to me today. But you don't want to have the little bubbles that are popping up here. You don't want to have those, because your paint will get underneath those and run into your solid gray. Come on. Okay. All right, we're gonna get all this pushed down. Up here, it's a little bit harder because, come on. And as this is showing you, it's not always easy. Loosen that so it's not pulling on it. There we go. And we'll tuck this down so it's not. I'll go do the same here. And the same there. Okay, so we've got stripe 1 set. Typically with grain I've seen all sorts. I've done them on other pieces as well, where you can do 2 stripes the same amount apart, 3 stripes with a big one in the middle, 3 all together, or a single. It's really up to you and what you like and what pleases your eye. I'm gonna do the next stripe now. I'm gonna go, this one's about 1 inch. I think we'll go a little wider, or maybe we'll go over here. Kids are all supposed to be doing their chores, and I think as soon as I went live, they all went into their rooms. Or not live, but as soon as I started recording, they all went into their rooms. And they're hiding out. I'm here to go get different tape today. This is not laying flat. I don't know if you can see it, but all the edges keep on bubbling up. I think I'll just do 2. I kind of like the look of the 2. So I'm going to do the stripes in the same color that I have on the inside of this piece. so that there's some continuity and it doesn't just stand out. So I'm just gonna make sure everything's pressed down before I start. Now, this one, because this is a bigger surface, I will use a sponge brush to do the stripes on this piece. And I may just have to kind of baby this along because, like I said, these are not laying flat for me today and I'm not sure why. So my sponge brush, this one, I don't even know what the measurements are. I just buy the big packs of them and I just kind of dab. I'm not gonna actually do brush strokes because we don't want to get underneath that tape. And if we're dabbing, you have a little bit more control over it. And I can't see back here, so let me move just a bit. All right. And I'm really brushing a lot of this off as I'm getting it wet so that I'm not having too much on there that'll bleed through. You'll see my other trick when, oh, there's a gunk of paint. My other trick on the smaller parts is in the product I use to do that. I use little makeup applicators to apply and sponge on and dab on the paint for my stencils. That'll be like the numbers. The numbers I'm going to put on this will have that, as will the wording for my bread boxes. And I'm just getting a little bit on there, a little goopy. And if there's a little bleed through on this one, on this piece, I'm not gonna mind too much because I am gonna go back through and sand these down and kind of give them a distressed look anyways, so I'm okay with that. So we will run this stripe right under to blend right in with that color we have hidden inside. All right, I'm gonna turn this a little bit, maybe I'll just move so you guys can still see what I'm doing. All right, so we're gonna come back in here and I'm trying to push down on the tape as I go so that it'll stay nice and smooth and we don't get too much bleed under that tape. And again, I'm gonna make sure that I've got the edge done all the way back into that blue underneath or inside that little cubby area. All right. Just kind of pushing down on the edges of that tape as I go so that it'll not bleed under them. And again, my kids are home today. You can hear, I don't know if you can hear the rain, but I can hear all the trucks going by. Not that we live on too busy of a road, but it's definitely, we get some traffic. All right, I'll go ahead and push these edges down with the paintbrush and the paint. And as you can see, I'm just using the cap from my paint and just dabbing what was, I shake it a little bit before I start and just using what was left on the lid. You do not need a lot of paint when you are working with stencils like this. You just don't. The coverage is really good with what, once you already have that base coat down of the other color, you get pretty good coverage on it. On some of the lighter colors, I will go over it twice. Typically with my stencils, I do pull them up pretty much right away, as I will with this tape. I'm hoping that these stripes will dry while I do two other pieces. I was gonna do the green bread box, which I'll show you guys in a second here. I was gonna do that one live, or not live, I'm sorry, I'm not live. I was gonna do that one on video too, but I went to pre-apply the stencil to it, which was the one that said Merry Christmas that I did in my previous video. And even though it's a roll top and I have really easy lines to follow to get that applied, it ended up off center when the roll top shifted and kind of rolled up on me, and I couldn't get over the fact that it was slightly off. So I peeled that off, and I'll have to start over on that one, but I will show you that green piece. Regardless, I'll show it to you guys so you can see it. I'll get this in a second. Let me finish these stripes, and then I'll move this piece to dry, and we will start a bread box. I'm just trying to get up and underneath there really good. And I'm upstairs working today. The lighting is just kind of icky down there. I thought we were supposed to have some nice weather. I'd planned on doing these down there where I had them started, and then heading out to the garage today. I have a buffet I'm working on, and I really, my goal is to have it done by the end of the weekend. I have 2 of them out there that I want done, and I need to get sold, and I need to get them out of my garage so that we have room. With winter fast approaching here in Minnesota, I want to make sure that we have that room. So stripes are done. Let me shift this towards you all so you see. Very simple. I'm not didn't want these. They didn't have to be, I should say. These did not need to be perfect. They did not need to be measured for me. I like the rusticy, you know, hand done look of it. So I'm just going to carefully peel these off, and we'll let that dry. You can kind of get an idea of what it looks like, and I do see we had some bleed right here. So I'll wipe off some of that now, and then I'll come back in with the base color and get that touched up a bit. So there's our stripes. All right, let me move this. Here's the green one. I think I have a picture of this up on my Instagram, and basically what was happening is I had it applied and this shifted, and as you can see, some of these it rolls. It's a roll top, and there ends up being gaps. So I ended up having a weird gap in the middle, and it was making it all off kilter. So I peeled it off, and we'll fix that at a later point. Let's go ahead and cap up this paint here. And I'm in my paint clothes today. Like I said, I had planned on going out into the garage and getting that buffet done. So I'm in paint clothes. There is a bristle from the brush stuck in there. Just a little chunk there. All right, so we will go ahead. This one is going to say vintage. And I haven't shown you guys this on video yet, how I go ahead and apply these. So hopefully it cooperates with me today and I don't have to say any naughty words. I'm going to go ahead and you just peel off the backing. And that leaves the sticky side. And I just freehand, again, I don't measure. With these roll tops, you do have the lines from the actual roll top part, and I use those lines as guides. Make sure I'm seeing it there and there. And we come this way a little bit. I'm just going to rub it all on. You just want to make sure all of those air bubbles are out. And sometimes this vinyl does not like to play nice when I go to remove the contact paper. pull up a little bit, so you'll see me kind of playing with that a little bit. Just make sure it's all rubbed on there really well. There's no air bubbles. Get it nice and flat, and then I'm going to pull back. And as you can see, it is pulling up a little bit, so I'm just going to hold this down while peeling back on my transfer tape, or I use contact paper. And I'm just going to pull this back. And as you see, it is pulling it up, so I'm just going to have to come back through and just push it all back down, make sure there's no air bubbles, and just go nice and slow. If a part stays adhered, you can either slow down that roll and grab the corner. This is not playing nice. Or rub it back on there like the A here. And just rub it back down. Nice. Get a better angle at this. Give me just a second here. A lot of the times if you're pulling it at like a 45-degree angle, pulling your transfer tape off at a 45-degree angle, it does somewhat help with not pulling it up. But this is just not, it's a little humid with the rain, and I'm assuming that's why it's just not wanting to stick and play nice with me today. Like I said, this has sat for well over 24 hours now. And we're just gonna go back over and smooth this all out. Make sure there's no, like with this A, make sure we have no air bubbles. And this end's gonna need adjusted. There we go. Yeah. And we're just gonna press around these edges with your finger just to make sure it's flat. Trying to avoid bleed through. On this font that I used for this one, it is one that's got a little bit of movement to it. So if it is not perfect and you get bleed through on this font, it actually doesn't look bad at all, because it already has kind of a, I'll get a close up for you, it kind of has a, I don't want to call it a jagged edge, but it definitely has a not smooth, it's a vintage typewriter style font. So it definitely, you can hear me rubbing out the bubbles, but it has a really cool edge to it. Let me go ahead and show you up close. I don't remember if I showed. And it's definitely got, and you can see an air bubble right here, so I'll come back in and smooth that out. Okay. All right, so once you're pretty certain you've got all those air bubbles out, everything's firmly in place, you're just gonna pick your color, and my magic tool. I use cosmetic sponges. They're super cheap. You can actually get them at the Dollar Tree for $1, and you get a pretty good sized container. They wash out really well. I use them over and over and over. I'm shaking the table, sorry. I did go and grab new ones for this project only because pretty. So go ahead, and I'm gonna have to smack my paint. I should have done this beforehand, I'm sorry. That just sometimes loosens up the paint and allows it to open freely. And again, I'm just gonna take the paint that's in the top of it. I am going to look for, there we go. So this is the backer that was on the back of the vinyl. And it's got a smooth side, which the vinyl's on, and then a little bit rougher side. And I reuse these as I'm going through. So what I'm gonna do, since these are bigger letters, I'm not gonna use the thin, they're triangles. I'm gonna use the thicker side. So I'm going to dab into my paint, and you'll see there's a good amount on there. So I'm gonna scrape that off on the edge, and then go over to my paper, dab it off, and then go in and dab it in, and then just keep repeating that process until you get the coverage you like and the color you want. I'm going with, it's actually the same gray that the step stool is. Because it kind of gives it more, I like this one for lettering. It's kind of got a distressed feel to it. It's kind of, it's not too dark. It's not like, it blends better with the white, I guess. With the black on this, sometimes it gets too blaringly. I've done black and white before, and it's too much of a contrast. And I wanted this just to look a little bit softer and just have like a little bit of natural looking wear to it. And that gray just kind of really gives it that. And I am dabbing and pouncing, as they call it. I'm not smearing it on there. I'm not swiping. I'm 100% just kind of pouncing it on there. And I'm just gonna go back over some of these areas that I think ended up being a little bit lighter than the others. Making sure you can't necessarily see the spongy type marks in there, that it looks more solid than that. And I don't know if it's visible to the camera. It really wasn't, sorry about that. I try to get them all so that as you can see, these right now are a little bit lighter than these ones because I have gone over these a second time. I'm just gonna keep going until this really doesn't take any time at all to do this step. I usually, like I'm doing today, get multiple projects ready to go at once so I can just sit down and get them all done and get them all drying. And I'm just doing some touch-up spots where I might see a little bit too much of the white poking through or too much of it pooling up. And if you ever are short on edge space when you make your own and you get some over on the solid color, no big deal, it's paint. Wipe off what you can, go back in and either sand it and repaint it or just paint right over that. So this will go get washed along with my sponge brush. I will go ahead and peel this off too. And when it's still wet and you're peeling, just be very careful that you're not touching this wet edging from this side to anything that's not done yet. And you're literally just gonna peel this right off. And be careful when you move that. I'm just sticking it to the side of my tablecloth right now. And as you can see right here, the center of it hasn't come out yet. No big deal. You can use a razor blade or you can use whatever you have around to pull that piece up very carefully. And there you go. Now it just needs to be dried. I have paint on my finger. I don't want to touch the white. Just needs to sit and dry. Look how cute that is. What I do with my bread boxes is I do seal them with wax. I'll wax it. This one may get a little bit of gray wax around the edges and in the crevices just to give it a vintagey aged look. And then this will be all ready to go. Let me go ahead and move this piece and pull the next one up. Okay, so next we have this sea glass one. And this is the more rustic one. It was, I decided to go on the inside, a darker shade. I did antebellum blue on the inside. It's like a darker teal. I love this color. And it is really pretty. So I'm also going to use for the stencil the same color. Again, I like having that continuity so this color gets pulled to the outside. And as you can see, I do need to touch up where it did come off while it was drying. I closed it and unintentionally it did that. So I'll give it a touch up when I go and seal this because this will need to be sealed inside and outside since I did paint the inside of this one. So there's this one. And this one is gonna say farmhouse. Pull this. And again, we're going to pull the backing off and leave the red vinyl on the paper. And again, I saved my backing because I will use that for my stencil part, and then it's just a matter, you know, do you want to put it over that stripe, under the stripe? I think for this one we're going to go under, and I think we'll just line it up like that. And get it all pressed down. Again, it's a little humid, so it's not sticking terribly well while that transfer tape is still on it. But I am going to smooth it and then start to pull. Pull it down. And then we'll go back over once I get the transfer tape off and make sure everything is on there and there's no air holes. And again, this is also the typewriter font that's kind of vintagey looking and has a rough edge to it. So if this one does manage to get paint underneath, it's not, to me, not a big deal because it does have that edge that gives it that look anyway. So I am quite okay with that. I'm just meeting this one in the middle because I'm not liking how it's pulling off, and I want to make sure we stay somewhat on track with where this is and it doesn't pull off too much. So just about done. Oh, come on. I was joking with the kids that I was going to do this not live because sometimes when it does not play nice like this, I may say a naughty word. And I didn't want to do that in a video. It's definitely not playing as nice as it should be. And I probably could have trimmed up my transfer tape and tried to make it a little bit easier, but just about there. All right, so that is done. We are going to start in the middle, right where this H is, and push out from here and get it all resealed. All right. Okay, that side is down. We'll come back over it one more time before we're completely done here. And we're just going to roll this slowly because there's this big bubble up on top here. I want to make sure that we get, and it doesn't mess up my letters too much here. Okay. All right. Get that out. Move it up, move it up. There we go. Okay. Get the R down. Come on, baby. All right, we'll get it all pushed down around the edges of the letters. All right, and again, I'm using antebellum blue for this one, and I'm going to use that part of my sponge again. We'll get it done really quick that way. There's nothing, like no fine details in this. I'm not doing two different colors. If I were doing two different colors, I'd probably do it a little different, but use the pounding. Again, I'm going to use the paint that is in the top and the fat part of my cosmetic sponge. And dab it off and get it on. And as you can see, it goes on really easy. Again, doesn't take any time. I will probably still do 2 coats on this so that there's more of a contrast. Ooh, I just gooped it up really good there. And you can hear the kids opening and closing doors, sorry. Almost done with this first go round, and as you can see, I slopped some paint right there. I'm just gonna rub off what I can, and we'll go back in and do some touch up before I seal it. Sometimes it'll wash off, sometimes I will have to just paint over. And then as it dries, you can see, okay, well, maybe these letters here need just a little bit more. You can see where the lighter spots like are on the M. I'll just go back over that second time and just make sure it gets a really good coat of it. It gives it some uniformity. Let me get up here. I don't know if on my Instagram, I'll have to double check. I did some fall signs, and some of those fall signs have multiple colors or like an ombre color on them. And those, the ombre, if it's big letters, I'll use the fat side of my sponge. But the multiple colors, I end up just using the skinnier edge and going a lot slower and definitely taking more time to make sure I'm not getting into the other empty spaces. And I'm liking how this looks. Let me get a little dab there on the edges. And just a real gentle hand pulling this off so we're not peeling off any paint or getting the blue stuck on it. And again, we have the E and the O and the A, and you can remove them now or let it dry all the way and then pull them off. I'm going to pull them off now so you can see what they look like. Now be careful, because if you get paint on the tool or your finger, you don't want to get that on your project piece. I'm just going to wipe it off to make sure. And then one last one. There we go. And then we have our second bread box. Again, I'm wiping off my fingers before I pick this up. Alright, so we'll go ahead and move that one out of the way. I'm going to bring our step stool back in. And on this, we decided, instead of going with a saying on it, which we couldn't really collectively agree on what to put on it, there wasn't anything that was like really standing out that would make this more versatile for any room in your house. Moving all my old colors out of the way so these can go get be washed. So what we decided to do on this one was, it's still a little wet, so we're just going to give it another second while I get my paint open and ready. I apologize for the pounding. I should have really gone through and done this beforehand. One more shot. There we go. Okay. And get all this ready to go first. And then prop this down. So on this one, I'm going to still use the sponges because these numbers aren't terribly big. And we're gonna go ahead and put them on the stripes. Let me move my paint so you can actually see this. On the stripes, we're gonna number them 1 and 2. So they are still a little damp, so I know if I stick these on there, it's gonna pull off. But we're gonna put them right over the stripes in black. So there's that third contrasting color, but they're all very good neutrals that can be put in pretty much any room. With this still being wet, I suppose I could go get my heat gun and gun it, or change plans and go on the other side with my numbers. But I'm afraid if we do that, it might be too much to do 1 and then 2. I don't know, maybe. Let's see what, this is just too wet. I know if I put these on there, I'm gonna pull off some of that paint, and I don't wanna do that because the stripes, to do the touch up on them after we have the numbers over them, it'll just be too hard. So I may have to wait and just do this at a separate time. I really was thinking this was the way to go, was to put them over here. I guess right now we'll leave it, and you guys can go ahead and leave a comment on which side you should think I should do them on. Should I do them on the striped side, or should I do them on the blank side? So leave your comment below, and I'll wrap this up for now. I will get pictures up on my Instagram of all of these completed, including this one, once we get a decision as to where we're going with the numbers. And then get all the pictures listed of these items, and also I'll get that green one finished up with a Christmas on it. It was so cute too. I'm really bummed that I had that shift on me. We'll get these listed, and you guys will get pictures of them. It'll be super cute when it's done. I can't wait. So just let me know below, striped side, plain side, and feel free to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. And as always, thanks for watching.